Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Thursday class with the prayers first. Oh, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Om Bhur-bhavasvaha, Tatsavitra-varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. Let's open our books. We finished verse number 8, where Rishi is telling us the self is not grasped by eyes or words. So self means the soul. Na chakshusha griyate, na api vacha. Nor perceived by the senses, nor revealed by rituals and austerity. When the understanding becomes calm and refined, then in meditation, one realizes him, the absolute. Okay? So in the first part of this mantra, he is telling us which instruments do not help us to understand who we are. But how do we understand then? He said, become calm, become pure. Refined means pure. Gyan prasaden vishuddha sattvaha tataha tutam pashyate nishkalam dhyayaman. And we have to do dhyana. Disconnect from the world and connect with him. That's all we need to do, actually. If we start practicing, this is the easiest thing to do. Easiest. Let's start the class with verse number 9. Eshaha anu atmaha chetasa veditva yasmin prana panchadha samvivesh pranay chitam sarvam otam prajanam yasmin vishuddhe vibhavati eshaha atmaha. Eshaha, this, anu, subtle, atma, the soul, chetasa, by mind, veditva, should be known, yasmin, in which pranaha, the prana, the life force, panchadha, fivefold, samvivesh, entered, pranay, by prana, chitam, mind, sarvam, all, otam, connected, prajanam, to the men, to the people, human beings. Yasmin, which, vishuddhe, when purified, vibhavati, shines, eshaha, this, atma. By means of the light of the intellect, one should know the subtle truth of the atma within the body, which is pervaded by the life force in a fivefold way. Man's intellect is interwoven with the senses. When that intellect is purified, the self shines forth. So all we have to do is do the cleaning. So the instrument in making an all-out and sincere effort at the rediscovery of self is declared here by this great Rishi, a purified intellect. Purified intellect. Chet saha. Chetas is the illuminating principle in us. Chetas. It is the intelligence in the intellect. That is called Chetas. So one can realize the Atma through a process of knowing, that is saying. But we got to be very careful when we try to understand. Otherwise, this mantra would be contradictory to the earlier mantras. Because the Rishi said that Atma is inconceivable, unmovable. But over here, he's telling us we can know it through the intellect. But when we understand this mantra properly, when we understand what all the intellect has to inquire into and judge, when we understand what the pure intellect is, because once the pure intellect has discriminated the finite matter and what is infinite, or what we have forgotten, that what is our real nature, then that intellect meditates on the self. So first use the intellect to try to understand what is infinite and what is finite. So this Upanishad, when it says here that the instrument of realizing the self is the light of the intellect, that really we should understand it, that when we have become fully aware of all the items in us which we are not. All these layers of our personality, whether it's the body or the mind or the intellect or the ego, which we are not, we understand that through the intellect. Then we'll know that what is left behind, that shining, that purity, that is the divinity in us. So knowing what we are not, and then get to know who you are. So this is a process of discrimination. This is a process of analysis and a very reasoned elimination. So eliminate what you are not. Then we come to recognize in the vaults of beings the truth or the reality. That's what happens. And this all is supposed to be done at the time of the meditation. Ordinarily, though we are intelligent, human beings are intelligent, our entire attention is employed with the sense organs and their respective objects. But when that intellect is purified, that means when it is withdrawn from its playful preoccupation with the toy world. When eyes don't want to see anything in the outer world, ears don't want to hear anything in the outer world, all our senses, they can be turned inward. Within, then the self shines forth in its own illumination. It is shining all the time, but we are not paying attention to it because we are always enamored by the outer objects. We got to close these windows consciously, deliberately, for a few minutes every day. That which makes us a stranger to ourselves is our own preoccupation with our false identification and our wasteful play with the senses. Forget about the last year or last month or even yesterday. Today, look at it. How many minutes, how many hours we are wasting through these senses. Once we withdraw ourselves from them, just like a sun from behind the clouds, self emerges to assert and shine itself. Because it is there. We don't have to bring it from somewhere. It is there. But we just waste our time running here and there to appease these senses of ours. So that's why we got to heighten our discrimination. Discrimination we do through the intellect. This precious life which God has given it to me. Am I using it properly? Or am I just wasting? Because time does not stop. Before we know, the day is over. Before we know, the week is over. Before we know, the month is over. And even the year is over. Before we know, this life will be over. Let's look at next verse number 10. Yam yam lokam manasaha samvibhati vishuddha sattvaha kamyate yancha kaman tam tam lokam jayate tancha kaman tasmat atam geyam hi archayet bhuti kamaha. Yam yam, that means which. Lokam, the world. Manasa, by mind. Samvibhati, concentrates. Vishuddha sattvaha, a person of a purified nature. Kamyate, desires. Yan means which, cha means and, kaman, objects. Tam, that. Lokam, the world. Jayate, obtains. Tan means that, cha means and, kaman means desires. Tasmat, therefore, Atam Gayam, the man of self-realization. He means verily, Archayet, should honor. Bhutika Maha, whose desirous of prosperity. Bhuti. Whatever sphere the man of purified nature desires, whatever objects he fixes his heart upon, he obtains those worlds and those objects. Therefore, he who is desirous of prosperity should honor the man of self-realization. So over here in this mantra, we see the great secret of success. For anyone who chooses to make use of it in all his activities, with a single pointed devotion, we can harness our entire mental capacity. Whatever we wish for or will for, that can happen. This is a certain law in life. But unfortunately, none of us has a fully integrated mind. We never exclusively wish for one thing powerfully enough. There's always more than one thing in our mind. Even when we want something fully, we see somebody else doing something else, right away we change our mind. So before we wish for a thing, 100 other desires and contrary thoughts crowd the mind. In fact, we start doubting ourselves too. And those are also thoughts. That's how we lose our powers. So in this mantra, this Rishi is giving us a secret where we can be successful. And that secret is do the sadhana. We got to train our mind. That is the sadhana. So sadhana develops in the sadhak a mental capacity to think or to wish, to feel or to determine, to reject or to desire one solitary idea. Exhaust completely everything else, just one thing. All other dissimilar thoughts or even complementary thoughts, they got to go away. Only then there's a concentration. Just one thought. A person who was ordinary, he felt ineffectual, helpless. That's why these yogi gurus, they gave us so many techniques to develop this. Some people say that we can develop this with Ishwar Kripa. A Bhagat will say that we need Gurus or God's Kripa. Or we can call it our own willpower, Sankalp Shakti. No matter what we call it, it's the same thing actually. Whether it's a Jnani or a Bhagat or a Karam Yogi, they are talking about the same thing, same phenomena. In other words, we got to learn how to have a more and more integrated personality. At the physical level, mental level, intellectual level, integration. That's how we will feel more powerful. Out of even the worst of us, such a genius can be brought out through the divine technique of yoga. This sadhana is a yogic sadhana. The supreme perfection in personality is reached when we learn this from a guru. That's what this mantra is saying. Because that guru is called a master. A master's only life is to live, to give the guidance and the blessings to others. One in all and the all in one, blessing all and ever loving all. That's what the gurus do. That is the glorious life of a guru or a seer. Because the guru has the living experience of the intimate identification with everything and everyone. Guru sees the oneness. Guru sees the God in all of us. A true master craves for nothing, needs nothing, except the seeker's mental and intellectual purification and spiritual glory. Live in continuous and unbroken God remembrance and intelligent detachment and self-control and purity. Always cheerful, always happy. Regular in meditation, and in charity, ever playing the duties of your life, never taking it so seriously to your heart. In your heart, you want to keep only God. This is the secret way of serving a true man of realization. This is what this Rishi is telling us. And this is the end of this chapter 3, section 1. So every chapter has 3 sections. So second section starts with the Saved etat paramam brahmadham yatra vishvam nihitam bhati shubram upasate purusham yehi akamaha te shukra etat ati vartanti dhiraha. Sa means he. Over here, he means the man of self-realization. Ved knows etat this paramam supreme Brahma dham. Yatra means where, Vishwam world, nihitam fixed, bhati shines, shubhram pure, upasate worships, purusham, ye means who, he means verily, akama, without any desire. Te means they, shukra, the state of rebirth. Etat this, ati vartanti, go beyond, dhiraha, the wise person. The man of self-realization knows the radiant supreme Brahma to be him on whom the world is based. So that means the substratum is Brahma. And those men of discrimination who, without any worldly desire, are devoted to such persons, go beyond all chances of rebirth. So in this mantra, we have a description of the benefits accrued by service to the great men of realization. By a person who is himself without any material desires. So when we serve also, the devotee should not have any material desire, and obviously the Guru does not have any material desire. Kama. Because a doubt comes into a mind in the seekers. What would be the benefit if a great master be served faithfully and worshipped devotedly for a length of time? Because why do the service? Because most of the time, the worldly people think that if I do something, I should get something in back. But we got to reach to this level where we do something because we are supposed to do it without getting anything in return. So this mantra answers, if the questions come into our mind in a most clear terms, that such an aspirant gains the sacred spiritual wealth. Because normally we are looking for the material wealth. Over here, he gets the spiritual wealth without even asking for it, without even wishing and willing for it. And what is that wealth? Antakaran Shuddhi. The inner equipment gets purified by doing the seva. That's why we do the seva. Because in the earlier mantras, he said that the intellect also got to get purified. So how does the intellect get purified? Because we know how to purify our body or our environment or even our mind to some extent. We know how to purify it, not have the negative thoughts in there. But intellect, which is so subtle, how to purify it? It can be purified only by seva. And by seva of this kind, where you are not looking for any reward. This is called a antekaran shuddhi. So here the mantra says that by serving a master faithfully for a period of time, the individual would reach the state of perfection, which is immortal and eternal. So it's not a temporary state, it's eternal. Guru Seva makes the aspirant more and more fit for greater exertions and higher flights through meditation. If you are meditating every day, but you are not reaching to that level, I would suggest that start doing some seva of this kind without any effort, because meditation does not take any effort. You'll be reaching there. The Brahm here mentioned is the conditioned Brahm and not the unconditioned supreme reality. So this Brahm, when he is talking about Brahm, is the material cause for the world of names and forms, which bangs upon our cognition at every moment. So in other words, it's the Brahm conditioned in avidya that is meant here, and not the pure knowledge, absolute, beyond all traces of both vidya and avidya. Just like in sun, there's no darkness. Sun is nothing but a mass of light. We all know that. So in pure wisdom, there cannot be any trace of ignorance. Verse number 2. Kamanya kamyate manyamana sa काम भी जायते तत्र तत्र पर्याप्त कामस्य कृत आत्मनः तो एवं सर्वे प्रविलीयन्ते कामः. कामान desires. Yam means who? Kamyate desires. Manyamana who thinks. Sa means he. Kam bhi by their desires. Jayate born. Tatra tatra there and there. Paryapta kamasya whose desires have ended. Kritatmana who have realized the self. Tu means but. Ih means here. Evam alone. Sarve all. Pravilayante vanishes. Kamaha all desires. Whoever desires for objects, brooding over them. Brooding means keep thinking about them. So whoever desires for objects, brooding over them, they are born here and there for the fulfillment of those desires. But in the case of a seer, whose longings have found their final consummation, and who has realized the self, desires vanish. Even here in this life. Here we have a clear statement explaining the technique and the law behind human birth. As you think, so you become. Thought is the expression of the creative urge in us. And the creation depends entirely upon the quality and mode of desires in us. We are all familiar with that the desires, they disturb our thoughts. You had a very calm mind, and here comes the desire, whether from inside or outside. The thoughts get disturbed. And that the thoughts expressing themselves in the outer world of sense objects. Because if the thought is there, then you want to act upon it. Those becomes the actions. That's how the total field of actions are created by the multiple individual personalities. And all of us together, we are creating, we are doing, that's what is called the world. The lok. In Sanskrit, loka means a field of activities or a field of experiencing. That is a lok. And self-realization, what is self-realization? It is the ending of every trace of ignorance in us. Because where did the desires come from? From the ignorance. When we don't know who we are ignorant. And out of ignorance, the desires come. So self-realization is the ending of every trace of ignorance in us. We think that self-realization is some kind of a mystical thing. It's not. It is very scientific. Our rishis, they have given us a very clear-cut formula. In the vital moment of experiencing the selfhood, the seeker drops his own body also. He cannot have any more desires in him. Even the attachment to the body goes away. That's what's called paryaptakami. Paryaptakami, very difficult to find it equivalent English word for it. Paryaptakami. But the closest way of explaining is when there's no desire at all. All the desires have ended. A moment of total satisfaction comes in experiencing the perfection of the self. So the master of realization cries no to all material objects. Not because they do not contain any glitter of joy, but from his standpoint, these are just toys of life, and he is no more interested in them. Because he has a treasure full of infinite joy. These are small treasures, even a healthy body, or a good relationship, or a wealth of the whole world means nothing to this person. That's why the Hindu rishis, they glorified the state of desirelessness as the end all and be all of life. It was because they knew a technique of making us reach a greater state of perfection. That's why they talk about it. The great masters, when they talk of the state of desirelessness, mean that state of full and conscious awareness. In that kind of a conscious awareness, individual has no more any regrets at not having things which he should desire for. No regrets. With this knowledge, all the ignorance ends. Because where there is ignorance, desire will erupt, and where there's no ignorance, no desire can erupt. Try to understand this relationship between the ignorance and the desires. So according to the texture of our desires, we think. As we think, we are born into various situations and identifying ourselves with various forms. Newborn, now dying, now newborn again. Or sometimes we are born as a human being, sometimes as an insect, according to our desires, or even as a human being. Why different people were born in different homes, different situations, different conditions, different kinds of bodies, because of our own desires. The seer who has rediscovered himself to be no more the body and mind and intellect leaves off all the desires. To him, there is no more any cause for making his appearance again in this world. Because there's nothing to gain, nothing to fulfill, which is unfulfilled in him. न एयमात्मः प्रवचनेन लभ्यो न मेध्या न बहुना श्रुतेन यम एव एषः वृणुते तेन लभ्या तस्य एषा आत्मा विवृणुते तनुम स्वाम. न means not, ayam means this. Pravachnen, by discourses, pravachan. Labhyo is attained. Na medhya, na means not medhya, by knowledge. Na bahunaha, not much. Shruten, hearing. Yam means whom. Yam means whom. This whom means the Atma. Ev alone, eshaha, he. He means aspirant here. Vrinutehe, chooses. Ten, by him, labhya is attained. Tasya, to him, eshaha, this Atma, vivrinutehe, reveals. Tanu, true nature, swam of its own. The self is not attained through discourses, nor through memorizing scriptural texts, nor through much learning. It is gained only by him who wishes to attain it with his heart, who really wants it. To such a one, the self reveals its true nature. So that means if we want it, it will be revealed. But we got to make sure that that's the only thing we want. So if a realization of the self is the end of all our desiring, naturally the student of the scriptures would be anxious to know how this can be attained. So that's why Rishi is telling us this. So Rishi is negating all those paths which are ordinarily like working with our intellect. We think we are learning and we'll attain it. No, those are just the means. If a Pandit thinks that I can attain it because I have learned a lot, or I can give discourses on the Atma Tattva, or if somebody says I have memorized it all, large volume of the literature, this Rishi is indicating that's not how you do it. Any amount of hearing, any amount of memorizing, or listening to the discourses, or giving the discourses, those are all just means. So if none of these methods of knowledge, like extensive reading, intense study, or a perfect tuition, if this cannot, how can we know? That's why Rishi says that self can be gained by him who yearns for it. Yearns for it with his entire inner personality. Your mind should want it, your intellect should want it, your ego should want it. Only then the experience shall be in all right here. There are two words in the second line over here, yam and yesh. Yam, if we look at from a Dvaitan's personality, like a Dvaita, yam means whom. If we look at Advait, it means Atma. And Yesh, Dvaitan will say Yesh means God. And Advaitan will say aspirant. So according to Advaitan, which Atma this aspirant longs to gain? And according to Dvait, the aspirant whom the God chooses. So Dvait philosophy, we are saying God will bless us. But in the Advait, Atma has this longing to choose only God. I want only God, nothing else. So whether say you believe in the Dvait philosophy or the Advait philosophy, there's no contradiction actually. We got to have a pure heart. We got to learn how to strive sincerely, keep on doing our sadhana slowly, steadily, try to perfect yourself, and don't get into the arguments of it. Whether you think that God's grace will take you there, because in order to get the grace, feel the grace, you have to surrender. Or if you think that no, you want to let go of all the desires, dissolve all the desires yourself, that's okay too. Then only one is left. So whether the river reaches the ocean or the ocean receives the river, the effect is the same. Truth remains uncontradicting. The river in its final stage loses its separate qualities and it merges to become one with the ocean. Okay, so because sometimes I see in the translation of these verses, it's explained two different ways. So we don't need to get into the contradiction. All we need to do is, if our personality is a Bhagat personality, dissolve yourself at the feet of God and the Guru. Because ultimate goal is to become one. So just like I gave you that analogy of river and the ocean. It has to become one. Because to a Advaitan, Godhood is an ascent of man to the highest pinnacle. And to a Dvaitan, God descends into the man. That's why Dvaitan says God comes over here in a human form to bless us. It's just like by his divine touch of grace, will take care of me. So again, that kind of a surrender, that kind of a faith, where we are just letting go of our ego mentality. So let's stop it here. We'll start with the verse number 4 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.